Figma tutorial for beginners. Welcome to a new creative journey. In this video, we're diving into the powerful world of Figma, an incredible platform used by designers, developers, and creators around the globe. Whether you're into digital art, UI/UX design, or building sleek e-commerce layouts, Figma offers everything you need in one seamless tool. I'm going to guide you through each and every essential feature, step by step, from components and tools to animation and styling. Figma is packed with powerful features that make your workflow intuitive and efficient. We'll be walking through every important feature and component it offers. From understanding how each tool works to creating exciting, interactive elements like drop-down menus, animated carousels, and responsive layouts. You'll learn how to turn your ideas into stunning, real-world mock-ups. I'll be building all of this from scratch using new projects throughout the video to help you clearly understand how everything fits together. To get started, I'm going to create a brand new design file and show you the basics of how Figma operates behind the scenes. Once you click on New Design File, you'll land on the main interface of Figma. This is your design playground. It may look simple at first glance, but it's packed with everything you need. On the left-hand side, you'll find your Layers, Pages, and Assets panel. This is your Structure Navigator, where all your elements are listed and organized. On the right-hand side, you'll see the Properties panel, which lets you tweak your design. Whether it's colors, shadows, effects, strokes, or even building interactions using the Prototype tab. Down at the bottom, you'll find essential tools like the Move tool, Hand tool, Scale tool, and most importantly, the Frame tool, which is the backbone of everything in Figma. Whether you're creating for desktop, tablet, or mobile, you'll be using frames to define your layouts. In this video, I'll mostly be working with desktop frames, and I'll also show you how to split your designs into different sections to keep things clean and organized. Next up, you'll see the Shape tools, used constantly in Figma. You can drop in rectangles, circles, and custom shapes. These can hold images, text, or become interactive components. You'll also find the Pen tool, which is fantastic for drawing custom shapes and paths, and the Text tool, which lets you easily add and edit typography in your designs. There's also a Comment tool for collaborative feedback. And lastly, you'll find options to add plugins, widgets, assets, and app embeds, making Figma even more powerful and tailored to your project. We'll be covering all of this in detail throughout the video. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into Figma and begin building a beautiful image carousel from scratch. All right, so let's take a look at what a typical image carousel usually looks like inside Figma. To get started, all you need to do is drag your images onto the canvas and arrange them side by side. That alone gives you a basic visual idea of how your carousel will appear. Now, as I pull these images in, you'll notice how easily they align, and that's what we'll be building together. Now, if you're planning to design a clean, functional carousel, the first step is to make sure you've got a solid background or base layer. This background acts as the container for your carousel and helps anchor your design visually. A good base helps define structure and makes everything else look more polished. Also, keep in mind, consistency is key. All the images in your carousel should ideally share a similar color tone, size, and shape. This keeps your layout uniform and visually appealing. Let me quickly clear out this example so we can start building one from scratch. First up, go to the Shape tool and draw out a rectangle that will act as your image container. You can customize this however you like. Now, feel free to experiment with adding effects. Maybe a subtle shadow or a slight inner glow. These small touches can elevate the entire feel of your design. You can even adjust the rotation, border radius, or opacity to suit your creative direction. For this demo, I'll keep the design clean. Let's also add a stroke around the rectangle. I'll set it to the outside and slightly increase its thickness so the border stands out just a bit more. Great. This is going to be the container for one image. Next, we'll need multiple versions of this. So go ahead and duplicate the rectangle. You can do this easily using Ctrl+D, or just copy and paste it manually. Then, align the duplicate to the right, keeping an even amount of spacing between each item. Repeat this process 2 more times, so we end up with 4 rectangles, all lined up horizontally. Make sure the spacing is equal between each of them. This makes the carousel look clean and professionally aligned. Now that we have the containers ready, it's time to add the actual images. Click on one of the rectangles, then head over to the Fill section on the right-hand panel. Click on the color box, and you'll see an option that says Image. Select that. Then click Choose Image or Replace Image, and select your file from your device. Once inserted, you'll see options to adjust how the image fits inside the shape. You can crop, resize, or fill the container depending on your preference. You can repeat this process for the rest of the rectangles, each one getting its own unique image. Just make sure each image fits well inside the frame so they don't look stretched or cut off. By the end of this step, you'll have a clean, nicely aligned image carousel, and it's all built using simple shapes, consistent sizing, and smart alignment. Now, in case any of your images don't quite fit perfectly into the shape you've created, don't worry. You can always adjust the size of your image containers. Just select the box and stretch it a bit to make sure the image fits well and doesn't get cropped awkwardly. But for now, let's go with this layout. All right, moving on to the next step. Let's start inserting the rest of the images. Select the second rectangle, head over to the right-hand panel, and click Swap Image. This time, I'll choose another image. Let's say something visually distinct, and fill the box with it. Once that's done, repeat the same process for the third image container. Go to the Fill section, click on Swap Image, and let's go with something like a car photo this time. Once it loads in, it'll automatically take the shape of your box. Then, go ahead and move to the final box and do the exact same steps. After all the images are in place, you now have the basic structure of your carousel. But how do you make it look visually appealing and interactive? Let's talk about that next. At this point, all your images should have a visually consistent flow. If you've chosen your images carefully, like we have here, they'll have complementary colors and similar visual weight, which helps make your carousel feel unified and cohesive. This visual harmony is important because it keeps your design clean and professional, making it easier for users to focus on the content rather than being distracted by clashing visuals. Now, let's bring the images a little closer together. To do this, select all the image boxes in your row and adjust the spacing between them to tighten things up. This step helps your carousel look more compact and intentional, giving it a polished appearance. If the images are spaced too far apart, the carousel can feel disjointed or unfinished, so a subtle tightening can really elevate the design. Once your images are aligned and spaced nicely, the next step is to create a frame that will serve as the viewport for your carousel. Think of this frame as the boundary or window through which users will view the scrolling images. This frame is crucial because it controls what part of the images are visible at any given time. Anything outside the frame's boundary will be hidden, creating a clean and controlled scrolling experience. To create this viewport, select the Frame tool in your design software, then draw a frame that neatly wraps around the entire row of images. Make sure the width of this frame matches your intended carousel width. This width determines how much of the image row users will see at once before they scroll to reveal more. You can adjust the frame height as well to fit your image height perfectly, ensuring no unwanted cropping or extra space. With the viewport frame in place, let's enhance the design by adding navigation indicators, those small dots typically found at the bottom of carousels that show users which image is currently in view. These indicators improve usability by providing a visual cue about the user's position in the carousel, making navigation more intuitive. To add these, open the Shape tool and create a small ellipse, circle. This will be your first navigation dot. Position it centered just below your image containers, roughly in the middle of the carousel's width. The size should be subtle, small enough not to distract, but visible enough to serve its purpose. Next, duplicate this circle by copying and pasting it. Move the duplicates slightly to the right of the first dot, leaving consistent space between them. Repeat this duplication until you have a total of 4 dots, evenly spaced to match the number of images in your carousel. Keeping equal spacing between the dots is key for a clean and balanced layout. Once you have your dots lined up, select all of them and center them horizontally under the image carousel. This positioning ensures the indicators are visually connected to the carousel, reinforcing their function. These dots will act as visual feedback elements, letting users know where they are in the scrolling sequence. Now, let's consider the background frame, the container that surrounds the whole carousel component. Select that frame and look over to your design panel on the right side, where you can adjust the fill color. Choose a background color that subtly complements your images without overpowering them. For example, you might pick a light, neutral shade like a soft gray or a pastel tone. This kind of background helps your images pop visually and gives the entire design a clean, modern, and uplifting feel. Avoid bold or highly saturated colors here, as they can clash with your images or distract the user. Once everything is in place, the image is aligned and spaced, the viewport frame set, the navigation dots positioned, and the background color chosen, the next step involves working with the navigation dots to indicate the active state as users scroll through the carousel. To do this, select the entire carousel frame, including images, navigation dots, and background. Then duplicate it by pressing Ctrl+C to copy, followed by Ctrl+V to paste. Move the duplicated frame slightly to the side so you can work on it independently without affecting the original design. In this duplicated frame, update the navigation dots to reflect the active state. For example, make the second dot a different color or increase its size to indicate it's currently selected. You can continue this process to create additional frames for each image state in your carousel. These frames will then be used to build your prototype's interaction, allowing users to see the carousel change as they navigate through the images. Now, in this new frame, let's highlight the active indicator to show that the second image is in view. Select the second circle and darken its fill color to show it's active, giving the user a visual cue. This is a common UI pattern in carousels and adds to the user experience. After that, shift the set of images. Move the group of 3 images slightly to the left and bring the image that should now be in focus toward the center of the frame. Select that featured image and slightly increase its size to give it more emphasis. This helps create a focal point and adds visual interest. To do this, you can increase the width and height just a bit to make it stand out. Then make sure it still sits well within the frame and aligns nicely with the design layout. Once that's complete, we'll repeat the process. Copy the newly adjusted frame again, paste it, and position it next to the previous one. Now, in this third frame, adjust the image positions again. Move the visible images further to the left, bring the next image to the center, and resize it slightly larger just like before. Update the indicator circles too. Darken the third circle this time to show it's the current slide in focus. This process gives each frame a sense of movement and progression, and visually indicates which image the user is currently viewing. Keep repeating these steps for however many slides you want to create. This manual setup may take a bit of time, but gives you complete creative control over each step of the carousel transition. Now that you've got all the frames and slides prepared, it's time to bring them to life using Figma's prototype feature. Here's how you do it. Select the image or frame you want to use as a trigger in your prototype. Head over to the top right and click on the Prototype tab. From there, you'll see a small blue circle handle appear. Click and drag that to link it to the next frame. Choose your preferred transition method, on-click or on-drag. If you want the carousel to respond to swiping, go for on-drag. If you prefer a button or manual interaction, go for on-click. Repeat this process for all frames, linking them in sequence. You can even set the transition animation, like Smart Animate or Instant, depending on how dynamic you want the interaction to feel. Once you've completed setting up all the interactions, head over to the play icon at the top right corner to preview the prototype. This opens up your flow in presentation mode. You'll see your carousel in action, complete with interactive transitions, responsive frames, and active navigation indicators. Everything will now function smoothly just as you designed. And just like that, your Figma carousel is fully interactive and ready to showcase. So now I'm simply going to wait for all the images in the prototype to load up. Once they're ready, click on the first one. There we go. The first image appears perfectly. Click again, and there's the second image, smoothly transitioning in. And just like that, each click or drag brings you to the next image in your carousel. Now, you might have noticed that the default animation during the transitions doesn't always feel smooth or visually appealing. It can look a bit choppy or robotic, which doesn't create the best user experience. But don't worry, I've got a quick fix for that. Head into your prototype settings. Select one of the interaction lines and look to the right-hand panel. Change the animation type to Smart Animate, and from there, choose the Custom Bezier Curve option. This gives you more control over the speed and flow of the animation. I recommend adjusting the curve so that it creates a natural easing effect, where the movement starts slowly, accelerates in the middle, and slows down as it stops. Repeat this process for all of the prototype connections. Doing this will significantly improve the fluidity and make the transitions between frames feel much more natural and pleasant to interact with. Now that the carousel is finished, we're going to move on to another really useful UI feature, drop-down menus. These are especially important in any kind of app, website, or interactive mockup where you want to allow user selection. To start, open a new design file or work within a separate frame inside your current project. Now let's begin by designing the basic structure of our dropdown. First, we'll create 3 rectangular boxes, all of equal size, stacked vertically. These will serve as your dropdown options. Use the rectangle tool to draw the first box. Then simply copy and paste it twice and position the 2 new ones directly below the first, making sure they're evenly spaced and aligned. Next, it's time to add text to each box. Select the text tool and click inside the first rectangle. Type something like Option to represent a menu item. Adjust the position so the text is center-aligned both vertically and horizontally inside the box. Now let's style it a bit. Choose a clean and readable font. Set it to a larger font size and make it bold for emphasis. Change the fill color to black so it stands out well on the button. Once that's done, copy the text and paste it into the other 2 rectangles, adjusting their placement as needed. Now here's where we add interactivity logic visually. Let's designate the middle box as the hover state. This means when a user hovers over it, the design changes to indicate it's being selected. Change its fill color to something different, like a light blue or gray. For the third box, which we'll use as the selected or active state, let's add a stroke border around it. Increase the stroke width slightly, and choose a darker color so it clearly stands out as the selected option. With that setup complete, let's build the actual drop-down component. Group all 3 rectangles, along with their respective text layers to keep everything organized and easy to manage. Select all the elements by clicking and dragging over them, or by holding Shift and clicking each one individually. Once selected, right-click and choose Group, or use the shortcut Ctrl+G, Command+G on Mac. Naming this group something like Drop-Down Options will help you identify it quickly later on. Next, convert this group into a component so it can be reused and easily edited. To do this, right-click the group and select Create Component. This step is crucial for designing interactive elements because it allows you to build variants and states within a single master component. Now that you have your drop-down component, it's time to add variants for different states, like default, hover, and selected. In your Design Tools component panel, look for the option to add variants. Click the Add Variant button and duplicate your base component. For each variant, adjust the styling to match the corresponding state. For example, keep the default variant as is. Set the hover variant to have the middle box filled with the light blue or gray color, and style the selected variant with the thicker stroke border on the third box. Once these variants are set, you can use your Design Tools prototyping features to simulate the drop-down interaction. Link the default variant to the hover variant with a while hovering interaction trigger. Similarly, link the hover variant to the selected variant using a while clicking or on-click trigger. This setup will allow you to preview how the drop-down behaves when a user interacts with it. Finally, place your drop-down component wherever needed in your project. Because it's a component, you can easily duplicate it and the interactions will remain intact, making it efficient to use across multiple screens or projects. This foundational structure can later be expanded with additional options, icons, or animations to enhance the user experience further. But for now, This sets the stage for a clear and functional drop-down menu. First, create a new rectangle that acts as the collapse drop-down button, the one users see before clicking to open the options. Position it slightly above your option list. This will serve as the trigger for your drop-down. Inside this new box, add a text label like Choose or Select Option. Center it properly and give it the same font treatment as your option boxes to maintain consistency. Now we need a drop-down arrow next to the label. You can either draw a simple arrow using the line and vector tools, or use the polygon shape tool to make a small triangle pointing downward. Position it next to the Choose text inside the drop-down button. Fill the arrow with a dark color, such as black or dark gray, so it contrasts well with the background. Now the basic visual layout of your drop-down is ready. In the next step, we'll start creating the interactivity using prototyping features, like on-click reveals and hover effects. So stay tuned. Okay, now once we have this placed over here, let's refine the positioning a little. I'm just going to adjust it gently. There we go. Try to make it as neat and aligned as possible, much better than what I've currently placed, just to help you visualize. This is generally how you'll want your drop-down menu layout to look. You can rotate or tilt your components slightly to add a touch of creativity and make it stand out. There we go. That feels more visually interesting. Once you have this basic drop-down element open and set up, it's time to move to the expanded drop-down state, the actual list of selectable options. What you'll do now is duplicate the drop-down. So copy the current drop-down, paste it, and then move the copy just below your drop-down trigger button. This new section will be your drop-down options panel. Let's go ahead and create a bigger rectangle now. This will act as the background container for the options. Place it right under the drop-down trigger. There we go. This is where we'll start listing the actual selectable choices. Now, bring over the option boxes we created earlier. You can arrange them neatly inside this drop-down container, one under the other, spaced evenly. Start adding your text labels. In the first box, type Option 1. Then, copy that text, paste it into the next box, and change it to Option 2. Repeat this process for Option 3 and Option 4. Now, all 4 options are stacked neatly inside your drop-down. You're looking good so far. From here, you'll want to simulate interactivity, meaning how your drop-down will look when someone hovers over an option or selects it. So now let's get into state styling. Let's say a user hovers over Option 1. We want that box to change visually. Select the Option 1 rectangle, not the text inside it, just the shape, and change its fill color to something a little darker. This gives a clear hover effect to signal interactivity. Do the same for the other options. Copy and paste the darker colored box style into Option 2, Option 3, and Option 4, depending on which ones you want to reflect hover or selected states. Just make sure that in each case, you're selecting the rectangle shape itself, not the text layer. Now let's say we want to indicate a selected option, for example, Option 2. In that case, again, make sure you're selecting the box itself, not the text. Then go to the Fill section in the right-hand panel. Choose a slightly more pronounced color, maybe something like a deep blue or bold gray. You can even add a stroke or border to highlight that this option has been selected. And remember, each of these states, hover, selected, inactive, can be visually distinct. That's what improves user understanding and makes your UI intuitive. Now that all the drop-down states are styled, let's move on to prototyping. Go to your Prototype tab. Select your default collapse drop-down, the one that says Choose with the arrow. Then connect it to the drop-down with expanded options. Set the interaction as On-Click. Choose an animation style like Smart Animate to give it a smooth opening effect. From here, we'll build out more interactions. For each option in the expanded drop-down, Option 1, Option 2, etc., link it to a separate variant or frame that shows what happens after that selection. For example, selecting Option 2 could lead to a new frame, where Option 2 is now displayed in the drop-down trigger. You can use Swap With, and then animate it with Smart Animate or Instant, whichever fits your design style. And that's the logic of how we set up multi-state drop-downs with interactivity. Now, each drop-down option will need its own dedicated frame in the prototype. So let's go ahead and wrap each interaction in a separate frame. Start by selecting your first drop-down state and giving it its own frame. This is frame 1. Then move on to option 1 and create frame 2, and continue this for each additional state. You'll end up with multiple frames, one for each stage or interaction of the dropdown. This step is essential for creating a clear, responsive prototype. Once all your frames are ready, head over to the Prototype tab. From your initial drop-down frame, frame 1, connect it to frame 2 using the on-click interaction. Then, from frame 2 to frame 3, set the trigger to on-hover so you can simulate hover effects. Next, from frame 3 to frame 4 or any other desired selection, set it again to on-click. This way, you're building a logical chain of interactions that respond naturally to clicks and mouseovers. Now, to test your work, click the Present button or open it in the custom view to see the prototype in action. Wait for everything to load, and then start interacting. You'll notice, clicking the dropdown opens the list. Hovering over option 1 triggers a visual response, blur, color change, etc. Clicking an option results in a selection highlight. This gives you a real-time feel of how the dropdown would behave on an actual product UI. All right, now let's shift gears and move into designing an image carousel inside a desktop frame. Set the dimensions. Start by creating a desktop-sized frame from the right-hand layout options. Once added, draw a large rectangle inside the frame to act as your image container. Make sure it fills the frame nicely. Add your images. With the rectangle selected, go to Fill, Image, and upload your first image. Then copy and paste this rectangle 4 to 5 times, depending on how many slides you want. Replace the image in each rectangle with a different one by using the image swap option. Now you've got your image stack ready. Control image visibility. Set the opacity of all images to 0% except for the first one. This creates the starting point of your carousel, showing only one image at a time. Add navigation buttons. Bring in the pen tool and draw simple arrows or rectangles for navigation controls. For instance, place a left and right arrow on each side of your image. Fill these controls with a dark color to contrast the background. Now, to make these buttons stylish, apply layer blur for a smooth glow or soft shadow. You can also play with the opacity or blend modes to achieve a more polished look. Position and refine the layout. Ensure that your navigation buttons sit above the images in the layer order. Adjust the placement so they don't cover too much of the image, just enough to be visible and functional. If needed, scale down the buttons or add hover effects for feedback. Add title or heading. Use the text tool to type something like transform. Position the text above or within the image container based on your style. Choose a bold, standout font. Adjust size, weight, and spacing to your liking. Experiment with color and layering to ensure visibility over the image. And from here, you can continue expanding by adding auto-slide animations, using Smart Animate creating variants for each image state, linking your arrow buttons to change opacity and switch image layers in the prototype. Now, this kind of setup really helps your design stand out visually. It gives it a cleaner, more polished look, and it becomes much easier to present to clients or teams. Let's say you go with a straightforward text layout, simple but strong. You can increase the size of your heading by selecting the text and either dragging the corners or adjusting the size from the right-hand panel. You can also tweak text spacing for tighter or looser kerning, font style and weight for visual contrast, alignment to match your design aesthetics. Let's scale this up a bit. I'll increase the font size, and now we have our first word, transform. After that, go ahead and copy and paste this text layer multiple times. So now, let's duplicate it 4 times and change each one to say, Reform, Edit, Retro. Now that the headings are ready, it's time to build the image carousel under each title. Add image containers. Draw individual rectangles beneath each heading. These will act as image holders in your carousel layout. You can space them equally for a clean grid-based look. Add a few extra boxes to your layout for better flow. Maybe 3 or 4 in total. Position them accordingly under the text layers. Insert images. To add images into the rectangles, select a rectangle. Go to Fill, Image Swap, Image Upload, or select the image you want to display. Repeat this process for all the rectangles. For transform, add a relevant image. Then move on to the next box. Swap the image. Keep going until each rectangle has a unique visual. Wait a moment for the images to load properly into the canvas. Once they're in, your layout will start to look more dynamic and visually engaging. Prepare for the slider effect position. The image boxes in a horizontal line, simulating a slider view. Ensure the top image is fully visible and the rest are partially hidden or faded, using opacity or blur. This helps simulate a preview effect, giving a sense of motion or continuity. You'll want the primary visible image, say under Transform, to be front and center, while the next images slightly peek in from the side, indicating what's coming next. This structure sets the base for your image slider interaction, where each heading, like Transform, Reform, etc., could be linked to a different image using prototyping tools or smart animate features. From here, you can add navigation arrows, animate between states, use overlays, or auto-animate transitions. All right, now we're going to keep the design a bit tightly packed for a neat look. I'm going to bring this slider image a little closer in and make it smaller so it fits nicely. If you notice it doesn't glide smoothly when you test the prototype, just shrink it a bit more and nudge it closer to the edge, like this. Perfect. This is how you build a basic slider image. Duplicate your slide frame. Next, you want to make copies of this entire page. So here's the first copy and we'll place another one right next to it. Make sure both copies are exactly the same, aligned closely so the transition looks smooth. Adjust image sizes and visibility. Now, in the second copy, hide the smaller image and make the bigger image visible. This bigger image will be the focal point when the slider transitions. Once that's set, go back to the first copy and remove those bigger images, leaving only the smaller ones visible. Update text and images per slide. For the second slide, change the text from Transform to Reform. For the third slide, change it to Edit. Also, don't forget to swap out the background images accordingly to match each slide's theme. You can adjust the opacity of the images in the background to give a nice layered effect. Create the carousel prototype. Now comes the fun part, making the carousel interactive. Go to the Prototype tab. Connect the first frame to the second frame with an interaction triggered on drag. Do the same from the second frame to the third, and so on. Set the animation to Smart Animate for smooth sliding. You can also customize the animation duration and easing curve. I usually keep it simple with a standard easing for smoothness. Test your carousel. Once everything is linked, hit the play button to open the prototype preview. Try dragging the slider. You should see it smoothly transition between images and text. It might not look perfect right away, but you can continue tweaking the spacing, timing, and image sizes to make it super clean. Thanks so much for watching the video all the way through. I'll see you amazing people in the next one. Have a great day. Goodbye.